Hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Terror Talk. So, on this channel, I will be reviewing these different kinds of horror stories and giving my thoughts and opinions on them, and also just my thoughts on the paranormal and stuff like that. I love different kinds of paranormal stuff, and I will also be giving you tips on how to stay safe in these types of situations and what I would do to stay safe in these types of situations, because there's a lot of crazy stuff out there and you just have to always sort of remain vigilant. And I'll be giving you my thoughts, and they are just my thoughts and opinions on what I would do. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm always right, but I want to give you my thoughts on that, and I give a lot of credit to Mr. Nightmare and Mr. Ballin and all these other different types of channels that are giving these scary stories, because I have seen hundreds of different horror films and I'm a huge horror fan and supernatural fan, and I think that talking about this kind of stuff and reviewing these scary stories is going to be a lot of fun. And I will be doing one story at a time as to not overwhelm you guys with it, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. And before I get started, be sure to check the link in the description, because I'm offering a very affordable way to save money on car insurance if you're overpaying for car insurance. I think a lot of people are overpaying for car insurance and utilities in general, and I know a lot of people are wanting to save money during these times of financial uncertainty, so definitely check out that opportunity down below. So let's get into it. And this video I will be reviewing skiing and snowboarding horror stories.
My first big skiing trip ever was with my friends Angel, Amy, and Jessica, and we all flew to Colorado. We all rented an Airbnb in the town of Snowmass, right by Aspen Mountain Ski Resort. I had only been snowboarding one other time in my life at this point, and that consisted of riding down the bunny hill over and over. I was pretty bad. First thing we did from the airport was Uber straight to the Airbnb. It was a spacious 4-bedroom house.
So what I understand about Colorado, I have a friend that lives there, sort of off topic, but there is a lot of cool outdoors stuff to do in Colorado. So if you want to go on a fun vacation or anything that has some beautiful outdoors stuff, Colorado is definitely a place to do that.
It had a huge deck with a hot tub on it overlooking the Colorado countryside. Since it was nighttime already by the time we got there, we went out to some local bar on the first night, which was a Thursday. The next day we went straight to the mountain via Uber. We got our rental equipment at the mountain to make things easier. It actually wasn't super crowded on the first day, probably because it was a work day. The next day it got a lot more crowded.
If you're ever going to be doing an activity, always try to do it on a weekday. That's the best time, because everyone's at work, and I'm really not a big crowd kind of person, so they were smart to go with when it was definitely less crowded for sure.
For some reason, I just couldn't really get the hang of it. I couldn't make it down a slope without falling at least a few times. At a certain point, I was so fed up that I just sat on the side of a slope to catch my breath and take a break. Meanwhile, a bunch of people zoomed past me, even little kids that made it look easy. Then came this man who seemed like he didn't really know what he was doing either. He came up to me and asked if I'm okay, and he started trying to make conversation with me. It was the weirdest spot to make conversation, so after a few seconds of answering his questions, I got up.
Alright, in my opinion, that's really not that weird of a spot. I don't really know where this person is coming from, but that's just my opinion. You know, he's just casually passing by. But what happens next is pretty weird, but if someone were to approach me on a ski slope, I wouldn't think much of it.
Up and said nice talking to you, and resumed trying to snowboard down the mountain. This mountain was a blue run, meaning it was a longer slope to get down and slightly more difficult than a green. I stopped again a little further down the mountain to take another break. I really wasn't having fun. To my dismay, I saw that guy from before approaching me again. He was inching closer to me with the same struggle I had been dealing with. He stopped right next to me and unstrapped from his snowboard, then sat a few feet from me. He started talking to me about how he's not used to so many pretty girls like me being here. This was super weird because
Alright, at this point, it would definitely be weird for a girl to be approached like this and say that they're pretty because, they're covered in all their snow gear and it's like, sort of like, what the hell?
I had on a ski mask and helmet. My face was practically covered. He asked who I was here with. I lied and said my boyfriend. He laughed and said he saw me come here with all girls.
Alright, that is super creepy. It's like he was already kind of stalking her a little bit at this point.
I looked at him and said ew really loud, and then got back on my snowboard and continued down the mountain. It's weird, but I snowboarded better than I ever had in that moment, perhaps because I had the proper motivation to just get down the mountain. When I got to the bottom, I immediately went to the lodge and sat at one of the tables, calling each of my friends. Amy was the first one to pick up. I explained what just happened and asked her to just come sit with me. A few minutes later, I saw her walking over to me. I had already texted our group chat saying we should leave. It was already around 3 o'clock anyway. We'd been there a few hours. When Angel and Jessica finished whatever run they were on, they met us back at the lodge. We returned our rental gear and then Ubered back to the Airbnb. We all showered and changed and then headed.
I think it was really smart that she left right away and got her friends to her right away. That was a smart move on her part because you never know what some creepy people's intentions are out there. So that was really smart in my opinion.
Out to the village for dinner. We then went out to a few of the local bars afterward, and we got decently drunk.
I get paid $5,000 per book to publish books for other people. It takes me only one.
When we came back to the Airbnb, we all four went into the hot tub on the deck and drank more alcohol. After a while of that, we all eventually went to our rooms to go to sleep. I'm basically an insomniac, and I stayed up on my phone for over an hour scrolling on TikTok, even as I was still buzzed. I wasn't tired, and this was a very, very good thing that may have saved us. I heard footsteps out in the common area, either the living room or the kitchen. The Airbnb had wood floors throughout. Initially, I thought it was one of the girls going to the bathroom or getting water, but then I heard the doorknob to my door twisting. I sat up and was about to say one of their names, but I stopped myself because why would one of them be trying to come into my room? I instantly went.
At this point, it would be terrifying because you're like, oh crap, well, most likely someone isn't in the house that I don't know. And to me, that's one of the most terrifying things.
To the group chat to text everyone and ask who that is. Nobody answered. They must have been asleep. I tiptoed to the door and put my ear up against it. I heard footsteps moving around. When it went quiet, I ever so quietly unlocked the door and twisted the doorknob. I pushed the door open as gently as I could, and I peeked into the living room. I looked from corner to corner until I saw a tall black silhouette walking from one door to the other. It was a man for sure. He was trying to get into one of our rooms. I wanted to scream out to my friends to warn them, but I stayed silent because I was too scared. I closed my door quietly and locked it. I prayed to God everyone had their doors locked. 4 girls in one Airbnb though, of course we did. I called 911 quietly and whispered the entire time into the phone. That's when I heard the light knocks on my bedroom door.
Now, I'm not exactly sure she made the right decision to not call out to her friends. I don't know, what would you have done in that situation? Because it would have warned them, but then again, you don't know what the stranger and that creep would have done to react in that situation. So, I don't know, I feel like it was a good idea. Maybe it wasn't a good idea. It's hard to kind of tell in that situation if she made the right call.
I turned to the door and watched as the doorknob again started to turn, but he couldn't open it. I kept saying, please hurry, into the phone. All the woman on the line kept saying back is, they're almost here, and to remain quiet. It was entirely possible that the man on the other side of the door heard me whispering, because he started pushing into the door. I heard shoves and bangs on the door, and I just couldn't help it anymore. I screamed, get out of here, followed with, I'm on the phone with 911 right now. The bang stopped, and a voice on the other side said, "Okay, sweetheart." And then I heard his footsteps walking away. The 911 operator instructed me to stay in the room until police should arrive. I peeked outside the window, but it was simply too dark to see anything beyond a few feet in front of the window. My friends were awake now from my screams. I told them all to stay in their rooms. Police finally got there about 5 to 10 minutes later, and they came right into the Airbnb since the door was unlocked. Once it was confirmed the intruder was gone, we ensured every entry point was locked and secured, and they left. Sleeping after that was difficult. Of course, the idea came up that it was...
Again, I think it was really smart that she told them to stay in their rooms. And yeah, it's just good that she did that, because who knows what he would have done otherwise.
that creepy man from the mountain who was following me, and I do believe that's a possibility. The voice could have been a match, honestly. After working out a partial refund with the Airbnb host, we spent Sunday traveling the area instead of snowboarding again, and we stayed at a small motel Sunday night. We flew home Sunday morning.
So how much did it cost to fill your tank?
Almost $100.
How much is the car payment?
$140.
Yeah, so overall, I think that story was definitely creepy, and I think that there is a better than average chance that that creepy lunatic followed them all the way from the mountains all the way back to their Airbnb. There is stuff like that that goes on out there, because these sickos just get it in their head that they're in love with someone or something like that, and it's just super creepy. So I think there is definitely a good chance that it was that guy from the mountains, and overall, I think that she handled it really well. Like, she left the guy immediately and got her friends together and left pretty quickly from the mountain. And I think she handled it pretty well when he was lurking around in there. So, how did he get in there, though, in the first place? Did they leave a door unlocked? Because I'm a little confused about how he got in there in the first place. I'm not sure that was mentioned in the story. But I think a lot of these things can be avoided if you just keep your doors and windows locked. Like, whenever you go out to a secluded area or an Airbnb or someplace you're not familiar with, I think it's just better to check to see if all the doors and all the windows are locked, because there are creepers out there and a lot of stalkers out there, and, you know, if they can't break in to your house, like if the doors are locked, that significantly reduces the chance of a break-in. Now, there's always a chance they can break a window and try to get in that way, but I think that happens a lot less frequently. And I think that if you just keep all the windows and doors locked, and if you do hear someone trying to get in, just don't answer. Don't even say who's there, because at least 95% of the time, it's nothing good. And even if it's some old lady at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, like, why take any chances on that? So I would just completely ignore any, knocks or tapping that you might hear on the window late at night, and just be completely quiet, because I feel like most of the time that'll solve the issue and they'll go away and try to find someone else to stalk and harass. So those are just my honest thoughts and opinions, and I hope you enjoyed this video.